Welcome to Study Session 16, Application of Economic Concepts in Education 2. Introduction. This is the last study session in this course, and our concern is the application of the concept of efficiency to education. It is highly believed that after the study session, you will be able to apply all these concepts in the economics of education to educational issues and problems. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to apply the concept of efficiency to education. Efficiency in education. Efficiency in education is the ratio between the inputs and outputs of education. An educational activity is being performed efficiently if a given quantity of output is obtained with a minimum of inputs, or alternatively, if a given quantity of inputs yield maximum outputs. The concept of educational efficiency assumes that education can be compared to some industrial firm in that it receives certain inputs and applies to this input a given production technique, thereby transforming the inputs into outputs. The inputs into the educational system are twofold. First, there are the pupils, raw materials, entering a given educational system or cycle. Secondly, there are different kinds of educational supplies and services, teachers, textbooks, equipment for laboratories and workshops, school buildings, social services, school transport, and so on, which will be spent on those new entrants in the course of their school career. The value of pupil. Time is measured by the amount of money a child could have earned if not in school, and this is called foregone earning. This is added to the monetary value of labor, capital, and intermediate materials to get the total expenditure on educational input. However, in order to arrive at an adequate and concise statistical expression for these two input components, we may define as input into a given educational cycle the number of pupils entering the cycle multiplied by the number of school years which each of them actually spent in the cycle. This type of evaluation is useful in the measurement of educational wastage or internal efficiency. Inputs are those measured in pupil years. Any one pupil year stands for both a pupil's personal effort and the educational supplies and services spent on him in the course of one school academic year. Educational output can be defined basically as the number of pupils successfully leaving an educational cycle. Application of this general definition depends on the meaning of success in school. If one contends that only completion of the full cycle represents a success both for the individual and for the society, then of course only graduates will be defined as the educational output. However, supporters of the alternative definition argue that every partial period of schooling adds to the attainment of a pupil and can therefore be regarded as some partial success. They take over, in other words, the economic distinction between intermediate and final output, ascribing some value to the former. Technically speaking, this definitional approach takes a successful graduate as a whole one and dropout as less than one, the fraction getting smaller the earlier the dropout occurs. The definitions of input and outputs of education adopted depend on the type of problem of efficiency being solved. Efficiency in education has two dimensions, namely internal efficiency and external efficiency. The internal efficient educational cycle is one which turns out graduates without wasting any student year or without dropouts and repeaters. But the same educational cycle may be externally quite inefficient if the graduates it turns out are not the sort the society, economy, or higher levels of education want. They may be wrongly qualified, not meeting the university entrance requirements, be unemployable and redundant. How to improve the level of educational efficiency. There are many potential ways to improve educational systems efficiency. Generally speaking, they fall into three categories, viz. Changing the amounts, quality and proportions of input, or utilizing present inputs more intensively, without basically altering the system's existing form and technology or production functions. For example, a change in the pupil-teacher ratio or the qualification mix of teachers, and fuller utilization of buildings. Modifying the system's basic design substantially, involving the introduction of distinctly new components and technologies, designing a brand new alternative teaching learning system that is different radically from the conventional one. For example, distance learning on radio or correspondence. Study session summary. In this study session, you have learned that efficiency in education, which can otherwise be called internal efficiency, is a relationship between the outputs and inputs of an educational system. Also, you learned about how to improve the level of educational efficiency. End of study session 16.